Imagine if we were living in a magical land where it doesn't matter what happens to us. When we say something or do something positive, it multiplies to something even better. Like if we do something great, we get more finances and more wealth. If we do something terrible, then the opposite of that great thing happens, so something terrible happens. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests, to build upon a rock. That concept in itself makes me think about what should keep us grounded so the storms in life don't have us swaying this way and that way. And I think that's very, very, very important, because there's several times when we go out in the world and we allow basic, simple things like traffic to aggravate and irritate us. So we're yelling at people at a traffic light. I mean, I've even seen a woman walk out of church and yell at someone after praising for an hour or so. So that's amazing, you know. But what brought that whole concept up, what made me think about building upon a rock, is this recent incident that happened to me that kind of had me wavering, and it had me thinking about this idea of staying focused and staying grounded. About 2 weeks ago, I was at my place of employment, and there was a young gentleman there who said a few words to me that at first it wasn't the name calling, because it did go on to name calling. I was called blankly blank, blank, this, and that. I'm not gonna say any derogatory statements because it was harsh. And me, I'm tough as stones. So words don't really get to me at all. But there are triggers that do get to me. And threats is one trigger that gets to me. So I was threatened that if I walked out the door, it was gonna be all these issues. Now I know he wasn't much of a threat. But what bothered me more than anything that night, it bothered me so much that I called my brother, talked to him for hours about it, called my sister up, and I even aggravated my girlfriend about it, on and on and on about this young man at work. But what aggravated me more than anything was the fact that I entertained it. I entertained it for one fraction of a second. I could have gotten physical, that's the old me, but I entertained it by responding. I didn't respond the way he responded, but I still responded. And so later on that evening, I thought about the idea of being grounded to some set of standards that keeps us from wavering when those kind of situations happen. And that's when I came up with the idea. It's not my idea, but I thought of the idea to build upon a rock, a solid foundation that keeps me from wavering. Now it reminds me of a biblical story where there was two individuals. You have a wise man and then you have a foolish person. And we've all played this part. We played the wise man. The wise person builds upon a solid ground so they're not wavered anyway. And then there's a foolish individual who's building on sand, and that's just can't stand under circumstances. And I found myself there, and I was, once again, very, very, very irritated. So how do I get beyond that? Well, I dig deeper into what I need to stay focused on, and that's my rock. As far as family, where I'm going with family, as far as my goals, my Toastmaster Club, that's what kept me grounded. That's what enabled me to go back in this situation, even though I'm still employed there, and handle and weather that storm. And now I'm much better for that. But what happens when you don't do that? What happens to that individual that's depressed and that can't handle situation? I had a coworker who had an incident in their family where an individual couldn't feed his family. He lost his job. And so the individual ended up killing the family members. And then later on trying to off himself, but he didn't die. So I thought about that for a second. I said, life is so precious. What happened to this individual's rock? What happened to his foundation? What happened to his grounding? Did anybody reach out and say something? Me, myself, I dealt with incidents of people that I've grown up with that went that route. And I think back to that and I said, well, could I have reached out to them? Where was their understanding? Where was their foundation? So if I was to propose anything to the group tonight, what I found important, what helped me out, what keeps me focused, is to know that there is a bigger thing, there is something more important in life, and I have a purpose. And the funny thing about it, before I came up with the idea to write this speech about building upon a rock about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And about 2 or 3 days ago in church, it's funny, I went to church with my girlfriend. I need to go more frequently, and I don't as much as I should. But we went there, and that was the theme of the night, to build. There was scaffolding on stage. There was like carpentry people going around. There was hammers and a lot of noise, and there was drums. There was everything. It was awesome. So it made me think that maybe I was being spoken to, that maybe I need to touch some hearts with this concept. So we can go far as a club. We can go far in our lives, personal lives. We can go as far as the world if we just stay grounded on something and stay solid and be unwavered. Man, I'm Toastmaster.